Hey there, Nick here. In this video, we're going to go over an alias that I just added to my .files called mkscript, and that's what we see here. And don't worry, I'm going to bump up the font size once we start getting into the code. But throughout this video, we are going to go over how to use this alias or function, as well as go over it line by line, because there are some interesting patterns when it comes to just developing shell scripts in general. For example, you can use command groups here, and that trailing semicolon there is very, very important. So we're going to go over things like that. And I think really there is one more major takeaway from this video, in that creating a shell script really isn't something that is super advanced, right? You're basically creating a new file, adding some string to it, and then making it executable. And you can probably do that manually on your own in about 30 seconds by running some commands in the command line or using your text editor. But I do create a lot of shell scripts, and I kind of want my life to be easier, right? So there are this idea, of having developer happiness, right? You should be doing things that make you happy. And creating a little alias like this, where I can just run mkscript, pop in the name of the file, and then I'm good to go, that makes me happy. And I can just do that in one line. I don't need to do all the manual steps. So for you, maybe if you want to use this, feel free to use this. But the real takeaway is, try to optimize for you. Create your dev environment to make your life as easy as possible. And if that involves creating tiny little aliases that do little things, then by all means, do it up, because it's totally worth it if it makes you more productive or happy in the end. So let's go over what life is like maybe before having this alias available. So let me go to my temp directory here. And what would we do, right, to create a shell script? You'd probably need to touch the file, and then we need to make it executable. And then we'll open it up in code editor of choice here, Vim in this case. And Vim at this point, it doesn't know that it's a shell script. So right now it is set to plain text, right? So we need to, set the file type to shell. And then now we have some syntax highlighting, and we can use a little bit of snippets here. I really do like to write POSIX compliant shell scripts, but oftentimes I use certain set options that don't work with POSIX compliant shell. I need to switch to bash, and we'll see that in a second here. So, but oftentimes at the very top of the file, what I like to do is set a couple of different options, like error exit, right? So that if something happens in the script that we're running that causes something to fail, then the script is going to exit right then and there and not continue onwards. Another one is pipe fail, where, if you're piping together a couple of commands and one of those piped commands fail, then we want the script to stop right then and there, not continue on for the rest of the pipeline. And then another one that I also like to set is no unset, which will not allow you to have variables that aren't set. And I've done a specific video about that one in the past. I'll leave a link to that one in the card here. So let's see, no unset, there we go. And then also, I kind of just like seeing things work. So I like to put in just like an echo hello world or something like that. So if I run this now, we can see that we do get a hello world and everything is good, right? It is a shell script, done and done. But look how many steps that had to take to get there. I had to make the file, make it executable, open it in Vim, set the file type, type in all that stuff. Now, to be fair, sure, I could have created something like a Vim snippet to where I can just type in something like, bash or like mkscript even, or whatever it happens to be, and it would just write all this out for me. And that's totally fine. But, I'd also have to set the file type manually and do all sorts of stuff. And by the way, now that things are set up with the shebang here, even with no file extension, Vim is smart enough to know that that's a shell script without us having to do anything. Like I didn't type in like very quickly that, that just actually just works out of the box by Vim. Yep, it knows what to do. And it doesn't matter that it says, shell here and not bash, because, it's still syntax highlighting for shell scripting in general. But yeah, so now let's go over using the mkscript. So we can run mkscript, if you were to clone down my .files or, make this alias available in your setup. And then yeah, I can just name this one demo or something like that, and we can just run demo, and that is going to give us the same output as before. And if we look at this demo file that was created, it is the exact same thing that we just created manually before in that other hello script, right? So if I actually diff hello and demo, they should be the same here. We don't get any changes here. And yeah, it's a lot easier, right? And there's also some protection here as well. For example, if you try to run mkscript on demo again, since this file already exists, and it's going to say, demo already exists, and we can see the exit code there was non-zero. So if I do echo like this, we can see that it was actually with an exit code 1. That's what we want, right? We want us to have visual feedback that things didn't work. It's just the best practice. And there's also one more convenience feature here too. I do this once in a while, but like, for example, let's say you want to, I don't know, create a couple deep directories there. Like my script is in like, a whole deep path that you want. So you can just run mkscript like that. And now if I run it again, it's also going to not let us create it in a second case here. But this file actually exists now in a couple of directories deep. So directories, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then my script here, like it exists here. So basically, the script is intelligently running mkdir p for you, and then getting the base name to create, all the parent directories that you need. You don't need to go and like do that stuff manually. Kind of nice, convenience factor there. So yeah, let's go over the script here and take a look at it. It is going to be in the aliases file here. I'll leave a link to my .files. That's the actual commit for that one, but that's in config, zshell, and then aliases, and somewhere, probably going to change depending on when you watch the video. But yeah, right now it's down there. But let's look at it here, since it's a little bit easier to read. And that one is mkscript, and here we are. This is the whole script from top to bottom, roughly 19 lines of code. And the very first thing I like to do here is I kind of don't like just having relatively like unnamed variables here. Like just having a 1 there doesn't really tell me what that is. So I kind of like just assigning that to a variable name that makes sense to me. In this case, it's the file path that you're passing in. And the very first thing that we do here is if this variable file is empty, that's what -z is doing. And by the way, -n is the opposite of that one, like if it's populated. But in our case, we want to check if it's empty, right? If it's empty, then what are we doing? Well, we are going to echo, please supply a script name to create. And we didn't go over that yet, but if I just do mkscript here with no arguments, that is going to say, please supply a script name to create. That's exactly what we want. And we can see here, we exit with, again, with a non-zero exit code here. And that is thanks to using return 1 there. This is a fun little aside here. Like you can't use exit 1 here. Well, you could, but it's like probably going to do something you don't want to see happen. So I just saved that, right? I need to, what do I need to do? I need to source my config zshell .aliases file to reload it basically. And if I run this command now, pay very close attention that I am running tmux here. I've got 2 different windows open here on the bottom, 1, 2, 1, 2. This whole entire second window, and there it goes, completely closed out the shell. So probably don't want to do that, not in this case at least. So we need to basically just say we want to return from the function with whatever exit code that we want, 1 in this case. And also, this syntax here is just basically a 1-line if statement, right? We are evaluating this condition, and when this condition is true, then this stuff is going to execute here. And to do that, to execute multiple commands with the 1-liner, we need to create something called a command group. That's the listed phrase in Bash's documentation. And when we do this on one line like this, we need to end every single command that we have with a semicolon. And it's very important that we actually end the second command with a semicolon. Even though you might think like, well, do we actually need to do that? Like, if you're developing with CSS or something like that, you can usually leave off the last semicolon, I think. And yeah, if we do that, then I don't know if you've watched some videos in the past, like I don't need to change directories here. I'm a big fan of using a tool called shell check. So if I go into that config zshell, it's relative to the .files, by the way. Those are symlinks that were created in the home directories config file. But yeah, that file here, well, there's quite a few warnings here, and it doesn't quite know exactly what's up here, but it gives us really good hints, like especially this first one here. It's saying that we really need to add, well, I shouldn't say it doesn't know what's up, like it knows what's up, but yeah, it's recommending that we just pop in that semicolon here when doing something like that. And yeah, so that's why we have that there. Very good to have that. And yeah, okay, so next moving up, or moving down, I should say. And by the way, like this could have been broken up into multiple lines. I try not to get too cute with 1-liners, but complexity of this one is pretty low in the sense that we're just checking one, fairly basic condition and then just really doing one thing. You kind of just want to exit with something with a message. So yeah, we could have broke this out to be like if this and then put these on different lines separately and not have to worry about the semicolons. But in this case, in my opinion, it's a little bit cleaner. And then the next condition is very, very similar, except we're just seeing if the file already exists. That's what -f is doing. So if this file already exists, then yeah, we just want to make sure that we get an error message that says that the file exists. And again, we just return with 1. And then after that, at this point, anything beyond that, we can be very sure that 1, we've got some argument that was passed in, and then 2, the file or the path of this argument, it doesn't exist. So I think we're in the clear to actually create the file here. Yeah, maybe there's some edge cases where you're trying to create a file with like characters that are invalid, like like a question mark or something like that. But the OS will actually save you there. But at that point, yeah, the first thing we need to do now, like before we actually start creating files, is yeah, let's make any parent directories that we need to create first. So mkdir p, that will just go and create as many parent directories, or if you make directories like A, B, C, D, E, F, like it's going to create all those directories for you. You don't need to like mkdir them separately. And we do want to get the dir name of the file. So that could be a little bit easier to explain if we actually print out what file is, and then we'll also print out this line over here, like the dir name. We'll do that. And then, well, I don't want to actually make the dir or do anything, so I'm gonna just return 0 here because let's not execute the rest. And this is only temporary, right? Let me go back to here. We need to redo that. And now if I do a mkscript, let's do like hello world and then my script or something like that. And we can see here, and going back real quick to here, the first echo is the actual file, the full path, and the dir name is getting just the directory part of the path. So, if the file that we want to create is my script, we want to actually make dir p on, hello world, right? These things are the directories that need to be created, because the slash isn't part of like the actual file name itself. So that's all that's doing there. Nothing too crazy. So now that we've got all of our parent directories that need to be created, then next up, we need to go and create the file itself that we want to create. And we can still use file here, like, we don't need to get just a file name or something, because we technically do want this file to be created at, whatever path it needs to be, deeply nested with all the directories that was created by mkdir. More interesting, and by the way, like this part is not the interesting part, I guess, is basically the contents of what file is going to be created. But this stuff here, what we're doing is, we are creating a multi-line string and then using cat to redirect that out to a file. So I think there's other examples of this, like in my aliases file here, where, slightly, I guess, less complex version of that one. Like if you just want to output multiple lines to standard out, like for example, like, in this case, it's just giving you a little bit of feedback of, the stop recording little script that I have here. And this will just echo this out to the terminal. And that is just, one way to do multi-line strings when working with bash or shell scripting. It's kind of lame. Like I don't like having to have the end of file not indented, but that's just the way it is with life. And I found that this is the most readable, at least in my opinion, way to make multi-line strings. Now, in this case, we want to do the same thing. Like we're still doing the same pattern of making a multi-line string. However, we're basically, sending that in as standard input to cat and then redirecting that out to a file. Basically, long story short, it creates the file. And then after that, really basic, we just do a chmod x on the file to make it executable so that you can actually run it as a shell script. Because if you didn't do that, then it wouldn't be executable and you wouldn't be able to run it. And that's it. So you just run mkscript, pop in whatever path that you want, and then we get what we want. With that said, if you have any questions about this, let me know in the comments below. And, I'll link to some resources in the notes as well. If you find any ways to create this in a different way that's potentially better, feel free to let me know. Or even better, like here's a good one. Like what would you actually put in your baseline, like aliases file to create a script? Like maybe do you not set no end set? Like do you just use POSIX compliant shell? Like what other stuff do you set here all the time? I was debating on putting maybe like a to-do comment here, like, describe the script or something like that. But I don't know. I didn't put that there because usually I just add that stuff anyways. And, I try not to put so many things in here where it's like, well, now I create it, but I have to delete like 5 things, et cetera, et cetera. So with that said, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up because it really does help a lot. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you in the next video.